So what happens when you have a guaranteed hit director, a guaranteed hit actor, and a really, really good script? Home run, right? Not to so much. This is Napoleon.
Or should you say, not so much?
Welcome back, guys, gals, and pals, to another edition of The Final Credits. And this time we are talking about Napoleon, directed by Ridley Scott, uh, led by Joaquin Phoenix. And I first saw like these trailers, like, wait, actually, I'm sorry. We heard about this movie way back in the beginning of the year, and immediately saw like, oh, this is a Napoleon biopic. Should be great. Heard about the director, heard about the cast, and thought, no brainer. This is going to be at least a contender for movie of the year. And my thoughts have not changed on this at all. This everything leading up to this movie was pure hype, and it did not deliver at all. It wasn't a bad movie, but I don't. This is in no way a contender for a movie of the year anymore, guys. Well, what are you thinking on this?
It wasn't a bad movie, but it just felt like the story was just jumping around everywhere. There was no cohesive storyline, and it wasn't going straight. It just felt like it was just, being all like on a river. It was visually it was amazing. I think it was visually better than Oppenheimer in a lot of ways. I mean,
I
you
don't know
can't
about
really compare the two,
that.
considering that Oppenheimer was more of a stationary thing as opposed to the action that was happening in Napoleon. But I did like it visually better. Story wise,
Yeah, the story I felt was a little flat. It wasn't super
lackluster.
engaging. Yeah,
It
that's
was
exactly it.
lackluster.
Lackluster.
Yeah, you know what the problem with the movie was? It was just like it wanted to make us believe that the whole thing was centered around his relationship with Josephine, played by Vanessa
Right.
Kirby, who wasn't bad in the role, but like it kept switching between like that central narrative and like all the battles that he had to fight. And don't get me wrong, those battles, like if this movie's going to win awards for anything, it's going to be those battle scenes because like that
Mhm.
is it's not going to win Best Picture, but it's going to win something cinematography related because you guys
Definitely.
can agree that every single one of those scenes was just like a
Yeah.
spectacle and a half to watch.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, Ridley Scott definitely, was, flexing his muscles on that. But I mean, because he's good at like, battle centric movies and war movies and things like that. But yeah, it's the story. Like I said, it jumped around a lot when it wasn't like centered or anchored down with on his relationship with Josephine, and then it's just I think the highlights of the movie rather was like seeing his vulnerable sides and like just how he tried to like be this big dictator-esque type of guy, like trying to prove his worth to like the whole of France. But then obviously having his moments where he's just like a little kid on the inside and is just he has like his like tantrum moments. And I think like the
Mhm.
standout, definitely the standout line in the movie when he was just yelling at like the British government. He was like, "You think you guys are so great because you have boats?" And they just like walks off. I think like the entire theater kind of laughed at that. But yeah, it's just and like the between that and just the jumping around between those two halves of the movie, and then like the ending too, I felt was it kind of like I understand why the ending was the way it was because that was kind of the end of the story, but it just kind of went from like the Battle of Waterloo. This is his big moment where he loses everything, all this stuff, and then after that, it was just like this like wisp away of an ending or like an epilogue, if you will, and it just kind of the credits just rolled and that was it. I was just like, okay, it didn't. I will say it disappointed me because I was expecting a little bit more because I could, especially with like Apple, like I think Kills of the Flower Moon, I think was surprisingly the better movie. I was expecting more from this one because
Mhm.
this was like the movie being marketed as the big thing of the year, but yeah, it definitely fell short. And cinematography, it'll win an award for that. Anything else? Nope.
I'll make it 4 for 4 as far as the visuals go. The battle scenes were so epic, so well done, and that was the true star of the movie. The scene steal, like I always like to say in our videos. As far as the movie itself, I still think it's worth going to see it in the theater. I kind of stand by that. Does it? As far as being a conversation, it's nowhere as good as Oppenheimer or Killers of the Flower Moon. I don't think it even cracks the top 5. Maybe barely scratches the top 10 or 15 films of the year. But
10
it
or
was definitely
15.
Wow.
that's a
Yeah,
lot.
I'd put it in the top 10, but other than that,
Yeah, I would say top 10.
Yeah.
Top 15, that's like, geez, what are you putting this beneath, like Quantum Mania?
I thought at times the jumping between storylines was a good, and I enjoyed the pace, but it kept happening every couple of minutes. Like what took place in that scene in that particular year didn't give us a chance to breathe, and we were off to the next thing in the next year. And that was definitely a detriment to the movie. So I could see how that took away for it. It was a letdown. I definitely enjoyed the chemistry between Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby to show the relationship between Napoleon and Josephine. Like
Yeah.
even though they went towards divorce, he still depended on her, still had feelings for her, but he was still obsessed with, she couldn't bear him a child and all that, the struggles of the relationship leading their country. As I thought it had its issues with that part of the movie, but the true star of the movie was the battles, the visuals. Everything else just brings the movie down. But I feel like you should still see it at least once. I say go see it in the theaters, but for Apple, if you don't want to see it with the disappointment, then wait till it comes on streaming.
you know what annoys me about this is that the writer for this movie was David Scarpa, and he's also going to be the writer for Gladiator 2, and
Oh,
it
boy.
makes me feel like he's gonna do some crazy shit again, just like he did in this one. And Ridley Scott is going to direct Gladiator 2, so I
We'll
have
see how
low
that
hopes,
turns out.
very low hopes for Gladiator 2 after watching this movie with this duo, writer director duo happening.
Well,
Yeah.
we could have the opposite Ghostbuster effect happen essentially right here, in which case we could have a flop and the same duo possibly realize their mistakes, fix it, and we could have a blockbuster. It is possible.
Yeah, but you know what else like really hurt this movie though is just like I think like the authenticity. Why am I like blanking on the word? Like it being authentic. It was not authentic enough.
No, it wasn't at all. I felt it was incredibly cheap.
For two main reasons. Number one is that they're all speaking in, at least all the French are speaking in American accents, just willy nilly, no nothing. And yet, like other countries are speaking in their respective accents, at least. Like people from Russia are speaking with a Russian accent. People from Britain are speaking with a British accent. But then Joaquin Phoenix is just his same American self, and it's just like that was jarring.
Yeah, but talk about that for a hot second, though.
Yeah,
am I the only one here who felt that Joaquin was stale as hell? Like, it's not that like, oh, the character requires you to be stale and stoic and stuff. I just felt like he was a bump on a log, and I'm like, this is like.
He had to play like a quiet, awkward character that was to himself, and like when he was put on the spot, he didn't know what to say right away, and then he just blurts things out. I think it's not his best role by any means. Obviously, like movies like Joker and even like Gladiator, the role he played there was much better. But I think that was the character he was given, and he delivered on it. I wasn't expecting much out of I wasn't expecting like any huge scene, maybe during the battle scenes, but. There, he was just like cold, calculated. He just blurted out his orders, and then everybody did them, and he knew how to win those battles. So he was. I thought he was fine, but I think that was just he was supposed to be like quiet, stoic, like especially around Josephine when he first met her, like just nervous and I hope this person likes me. I hope I sounded So I think that's what that was too.
I wouldn't say stale. I say he did a really good job with what he was given with the script and the character he had to play. I still stick by what I say in the short. I thought he was remarkable and one of the best in Hollywood. He's played complicated characters before, the Joker, Johnny Cash, who had certain layers of real life character in that movie. I thought he did a really good job overall. And Napoleon's a real life figure that had many layers, military strategist, complicated personal life. So I thought he took what he can and made the most of it in the film to carry a film. It's essentially a letdown in a lot of ways, but he held it together the best he can.
Yeah, and so like the first thing with the authenticity wise is that like like the accents were off and all that, and like I guess you could say the acting too, but then also like I don't think you should watch this movie as like a biopic because historically speaking, I don't think every scene that we saw him in was accurate in that sense. Like the scene where he's in Egypt and he just shoots a cannon at the pyramids, that never happened. I'm pretty sure there was at least two or three other scenes in that movie that were just either bending of the truth or just completely fabricated or just for the spectacle of it or what. But
having said that, though, the scene where he literally takes the crown from the Pope and puts it on his own head,
that was
1000% happened.
Yeah,
and that was amazing. That was the one thing I wanted out of this whole thing. I'm like, oh my god, are they actually going to do it? Yes.
Yeah, no, that scene, that was iconic. They had to do that. They even showed like the picture that was getting painted from it and everything. But and I think that's like the overall arching issue of this movie is that it didn't know what it wanted to be. Like, was it like in some like with its humor, was it supposed to be a comedy? Was it supposed to be like almost like a satirical piece? Was it supposed to be a biopic? Was it supposed to be a character study, or was it supposed to be a romantic drama between him and Josephine? It was jumbling, or was it a war film? It tried to make a mishmash of all these different types of movie scenes together, and I think it just made it way more messy than it needed to be.
John, you mentioned the authenticity a couple times. Would you say, we'll question all three of you, would you say the creative liberties they took with history events and certain things being inaccurate, that contribute to the letdown of the movie? Taking creative liberty with historical
events? It depends what you're thinking walking into the theater, what you're expecting walking into the theater.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's a Ridley Scott movie. If you look at this movie like Gladiator, then I think it's a decent follow-up to that type of movie. But if you're looking for, like, if you're like a fan of like history and Napoleon and all that stuff, you're going to walk out of that theater saying, what the hell was that? Like, how did he get away with making that? So like, it depends like who you are. But if you're a history buff, you're probably not going to like this movie. But, it's subjective.
I think I subconsciously went into it thinking it was a war movie. With the trailers we got, they kicked off with a bang when it went after the British at that one port, the fight against the Russians and the Austrians in the snow, his epic failure when he tried to go to Russia. That's what the trailer was focusing on to draw us in. So I probably went into that mindset, think it was mostly a war movie, and that's what did steal the show. It was the other stuff that probably needed more work and more improvement to get a better film than what we got.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What you're saying is that Napoleon committed one of the classic blunders, never go into a land war in Asia.
Sure. Yeah.
He might as well challenge a Sicilian with death on the line, too.
Mm-hmm.
Or fight the Russians in the dead of winter and lose the majority of your troops.
I'll do it.
And you're the commander of not just your country, but other countries on the way. And they were showing that, yes, he was successful, but he was an epic failure, and how many lives he lost with so much blood on his hands, not just the lives he took against the country he was fighting at the time.
Right. So I have one question for the three of you. So now that we have seen Oppenheimer, we have seen Killers of the Flower Moon, we've seen the presumed holy trinity of the directorial giants, but going head to head this year between Oppenheimer with Christopher Nolan, Martin Scorsese with Killers of the Flower Moon, and now this with Ridley Scott. So, how would you rank these three movies before these hit the Oscars this year or early
The
next
movies
year?
were the director. The movies were the directors.
No, the movies, since
Okay.
since these directors are definitely trying to gun it for Best Picture for sure with these three.
You know what?
Wow.
I'm gonna go what I assume the common folk would essentially put this down as. Number 3, I would put Napoleon as the weakest from what we've seen. Number 2, for overall movie, I would probably put Killers of the Flower Moon. And number 1, I think walking away with the win is probably going to be Oppenheimer.
I got to agree with that. That's my top 3 too.
All right, you ready for this? This is gonna be spicy. This is gonna be great.
God.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
So in last place,
Yep.
Oppenheimer.
What?
No,
come on.
You're
Wait,
insane.
Wait. In
We're gonna
last place,
lose followers.
Yep.
in second place, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Are you
In
at
first place, Air.
Air? Okay, well
He's
that
talking
wasn't
about-
the question. So where does
But I'm just
no? You have to answer
If
the question.
if you're gonna go for
Get
Oscar
out.
buzz, if you're gonna go for Oscar
He's-
buzz, I enjoyed and liked
Absolutely.
Air better
Air
than
isn't
everybody
even
else.
on the list. What are you
I forgot
talking
about
about?
Air.
Judges-
I forgot
It
about
will
Air
be.
3 months ago, dude. No,
Yeah.
we're talking about the
He's-
three director giants right now. We're talking about Scorsese, Nolan, and Scott. Like between those three, who? So I guess you're saying Napoleon's your number 1.
No, Napoleon would have been in fourth place.
So you're saying Napoleon
Uh-huh.
technically Napoleon would be number 3, Oppenheimer's
No,
number
I'm putting
2, and
I'm
Killers
putting
is number
Marty
1.
at first. I'm putting Marty first.
Killers
I'm
is the
putting
final one.
Chris second, and I'm putting Ridley at 3.
Okay, all right.
My list
That's
is
more understandable.
my list is the same as Grimm and Johnny 64. Oppenheimer
Oh, boy.
number 1, and
Yeah.
number 1, Killers of the Flower Moon, maybe a 1A or 1B, I should say, and and Napoleon number 3. But if you factor in the other movies, definitely way down the list. I would even
Well-
put Air ahead of Napoleon.
I probably wouldn't, but
I don't know about that, but yeah. There is something else to also, if we're talking Oscar buzz, just for like a quick second, something else you also have to put in year 2, because more often than not, there's a bunch of indie flicks that no one just hears about whatsoever that somehow always get thrown into the mix as well, that we're never going to find out until the Oscars actually start playing. And I forget the name of the movie, but I remember Casey Affleck was in the movie. He was the lead. Never heard of this movie before in my life, and Casey Affleck won the Oscar for Best Actor that year. And right around that time, it was in theaters, and I went to go see it. I'm like, there was no promotion for it whatsoever. It was an indie flick. It just like won at like a couple of festivals, and that's it. And they immediately threw it into the Oscar mix. And you always have to wonder for like movies like that too, like the ones that just come out of nowhere and just dominate with the critics.
yeah, I mean that's what makes movies subjective, right? You never
Yep.
know like which one is hiding in the
Yes.
little hole in the wall movie that ends up being bigger than the presumed biggest movies of the year. So it doesn't have to be a blockbuster to be good. That's for sure.
Yep.
Well,
So, dare I ask, is there anything else that we need to mention about Napoleon before we ride off into the sunset on this one?
Nope.
No.
I am.
Nope.
Unfortunately, I cannot say that no horses were harmed in the making of this film. But if you want to know what I'm talking about, go watch the movie.
Bruh. There's. Oh, in that sense, thank God for CGI. But until then, that's how we feel about Napoleon. How do you guys feel about it? Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. Put them down in the doobly-doo and let us know. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you agree with us? Do you worship the ground that Ridley Scott walks on and pray that Gladiator 2 is going to be good? Let us know. Until then, roll credits. We're out.
Roll credits.
Roll credits.
Credits.
All this for a pastry.